Hello, Liz Lovick from Northern Lace again. This time we're going to be doing some dyeing with some dochans, as we call them here. Most people call them docks. You'll know them as growing near stinging nettles, and they're the ones where you, when you were kids, you broke the leaves and rubbed it on if you got stung, and those are dochans. Now, they have seeds which are spread by the wind mainly. This is one how they start off, all green. They gradually go through from green to red and then to a dark red. Now, at this stage, the dark red, you can very easily dye with them. The exact colour you get, it depends on your water, it depends on exactly how many seeds you have, it depends on lots of things. But this is one that I did just yesterday, and that's an idea of it. Sometimes it's redder than that, but it's always fun knowing what colour it will turn out. So you want to have really red ones. Don't use the greener ones, go for the red ones. Now you'll see here too that the some of the leaves are very dry and red. I tend to put those in as well. I'm not certain if they're makes a difference or not, but that's what I do because I find it's useful to have as much red as possible. You can see here already with these on the table here that the seeds are coming off already. But what you want to do is just move your hand, hold the bottom, and then just run your thumb up until you've got enough. There's a nice selection of the seeds with a few of the leaves. Now there are two ways you can go about it. You can either put them into a glass container and get the dye out that way, and then use the strained liquid for dyeing your wool. But what's actually easier, or at least I find is easier, is if you put the dye stuff into a bag with little holes in it. This is an organza bag. Muslin does well too. But the thing is, if you don't put your bits into a bag away from the wool, you'll find that you'll never get the little bits out of the wool when you've finished. So, there's the dye stuff. We're going to use this bowl again. And this is the wool I'm going to use this time. The next thing we need to do is go over to the sink where I'm going to wet all this, and I'm going to just put my yarn in water. It doesn't need to be hot water, cold water will do. Just with a tiny bit of washing up liquid. Fairy is good, Dawn if you're in the US. And that just helps get the yarn to really open up and allow the dye molecules into it to dye it. This dye is what's known as a substantive dye. In other words, you don't have to bother about mordanting. If you don't know what mordanting is, that doesn't matter. You don't need it for this. I've put some warm water in there, and I'm just putting a little bit of good quality dish soap in there, and then I'm going to put the wool I've got. With natural dyes, you tend, when you're playing like this, you don't worry too much about proportions. You'll get darker colours with more dye stuff and less yarn, or fibre or whatever, but here we're just playing. Now the yarn's been in there for a couple of minutes, I'm going to put the dye stuff in that bag so that
it can't get out, the seeds can't get out and get stuck in the yarn. So what I'm doing now is just pushing it around a bit to get it all wet. There's no need to pre-soak anything. You can if you want to, but you don't have to pre-soak. So that's what I'm doing there. There's our yarn. You can try it with cotton fabric too. Sometimes I've found that that does work and sometimes it doesn't. It's good with silk hankies and it's good with any sort of wool. So after I've left that, well, it's been about 2 minutes or so, then what I'm going to do is get rid of most of the water. I just need enough in there to submerge anything, and if you take away a bit too much, we just add a bit more in. There we are. Now I'm using a microwave. If you're using a large amount, you can do it on top of the stove in a pail or a pan or whatever. If you use an aluminium pan, then you'll find you'll get slightly different colours, and the exact colours you get depends on the dochan. I can't say exactly what colours you'll get, you just play and see what you get. What I'm going to do is going to put a plate cover over the top. You can use just an ordinary plate, but just something to keep most of the moisture in. And now what we're going to do is we're going to heat it. How long for? Well, I start with 2 minutes. And at the end of 2 minutes, we'll look and see how it is. Then I'll give it another 2 minutes and 2 minutes until I feel that as much dye has come out as will come out. That's had 2 minutes. I'll take that off. And here I've got a reusable plastic spoon. I have different spoons for dyeing than I do for coffee, so don't worry if you ever come to coffee with me. It's a different spoon I'll be using. Now you can see there, you may not be able to, that the dye is beginning to come out, but it needs quite a bit longer. So what I'm going to do there, because I've got quite a lot of stuff in there, this time I'm going to put it on for 3 minutes. Now it's got quite a bit warmer, so I'm actually going to use an old pair of oven gloves to see what we've got. And you can see now it's coming, and as I squash it around, the liquid gets redder and redder. And you can also see that it isn't just the liquid that's coloured. My yarn here is colouring up quite nicely. But I'm going to give it another couple of minutes. It's had 5 so far, but it's important to keep doing it on short amounts of time so that you don't have anything bubbling up or anything like that. It's just safer that way. This has now had 7 minutes. I'll take that off and bring this out. And you can see there now that this is getting a nice dark colour. I'm going to leave it at that. You can see incidentally that it's also dyeing the bag that I've put the seeds in. Now what I'm going to do here is leave it to cool down. It will go darker as it cools. So I'll be leaving this on the side, and every time I pass it I'll just be pushing it all around a bit, and I'll leave that probably overnight and play with it again tomorrow. Notice I am here working in my kitchen. I'm happy to do that with any plant that is edible, and docks are. Don't do it with all stuff you get from the hedgerows, but certainly dochans are fine. You can eat the leaves when they're tender. You could eat the leaves now, but they tend to be a bit gelatinous. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dye them in the ball. There's lots of ways you can prepare things, but what we're going to do here with one of them, we're going to leave it in for a long time, and we're going to squash it, so we're going to get the colour throughout the ball. With the second one, which we'll do later, we're going to make sure that that one's variegated. So this is the first one. The liquid's cooled down, so it's fine for me to put my hands in there. And what I'm doing is just squeezing it down. The other thing I've done is I have put a bit of Fairy Liquid Dawn dish soap in here. And you can see even straight away, without any heat or anything, that's beginning to pick up the dye. So I'm just making sure the dye is going right through everything. Then what I'm going to do is now put it onto the hob and simmer it for about 20 minutes, that sort of time. Now with the second one, what I've done is I've waited till the liquid has cooled down. I'm just going to put that one in, and only, can you see, I'm keeping the top bit well out of the dye, just wanting the bottom bits to be coloured. Now you can see how here already the bottom bits, you can see where the liquid has gone. As this is heated up, then some dye will come right up to the top, some will not. So we're going to end up with a variegated colour just dead easily. Right, that's now had about 30-40 minutes and I've just turned it off. Now you can see there that the colour has all come out of the liquid. There's a little bit left, you'll always get a little bit left, but all that colour has come out of the liquid and attached itself to the fibre in there. So what I'm going to do now, remember with any wool, the thing that felts it is a quick change of temperature. So it boils quite happily, but what you've got to do now is just leave that to cool naturally and only then take it out and rinse it. Right, that's now cooled off, and what I'm going to do is just take it out and put it in the bowl. You can see that stuff left is just bits and pieces of rubbish and can go straight down there. You know, when you boil vegetables, you tend to get a little bit of stuff off, and this is exactly the same. So now I've got the wool and I'm squeezing out as much of the dye liquid as I can, and what I'm going to do now is rinse it in water the same temperature as it is at the moment. Oh, that's alchemy, because that's gone exactly right. There we are, and you can check the water. You can see there that there's no dye coming off it now, so that is now ready to dry. And you can see now, I think, that it's got colour right the way through, but it's what we call a semi-solid. It's not all the same colour. Now that can be dried however you like, outside if you're in a place where you can do that, or inside near a radiator or something. Well, now these have been dried. This one was the one that we wanted in a semi-solid, roughly all the same colour. This is the one that was put in just the bottom in and the top so that you get the change. As you can see, I've been quite rough with it, and the donuts have fallen apart. You just need to make them up into a ball, and that'll be easy enough to do. You can see that's the original yarn. You can see the colours there. You can see that even the quote white on this one is a bit coloured. That's because the colour has come up with the water. But those there are now ready to deal with. Now, when you're doing any natural dyeing for the first time, the key thing is it light safe? Because if you use something like blackberries, you will find you get a wonderful colour range, and 2 days later it's all grey. So these are the little bits where I tried to begin with, and what I'm going to do now is a test for lightfastness. You just need something heavy, and you just need to put it on it, put that in the window, and preferably with as much sun as you can, and have a look at it every few days or whatever. If it's going to lose its colour through the light, then the outer stuff that gets the light will bleach, while the stuff that's in the dark will stay the same colour. And this is what I've done with my dochan dyed yarn. This is just an ordinary beanie with a brim that turns up. You can see what I did here is I started from the top and I used what was left here. That was left of the dark, and then this is what was left of the medium colour, and you can see there the way that this is not all one colour. That was the one I dyed to make sure it was umbre. Then this, I've used some fair motifs with this one. Just again an ordinary beanie, easy enough to put a bobble on if you want it. But that is the dochan dyed hat.